Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The Polish Parliament has started work on the draft law on education reform, which was submitted to Parliament in November. Today, the first reading of the amendment to the education law was held by the Joint Committees of Education, Science and Youth and National Defence. One of the main aims of the government project is to increase the role of the school superintendent in selecting the school principal. We are making the superintendent's supervisory role real by giving him usable tools. Firstly, we will give him the right to veto access to the school for NGOs who intend to share demoralising content with the students. Secondly, the superintendent will obtain the right to dismiss a principal who, despite being repeatedly ordered to implement the will of the superintendent, fails to do so. The amendment provides for the possibility to summon the head of a school or educational institution to submit explanations to the superintendent if the former has not previously implemented his recommendations. In the next step, the superintendent could apply to the authority in charge of the school to dismiss the head of the institution without notice. The Law and Justice Party points out that the school superintendent will be able to see the content of classes. And this is especially important when they try to introduce sex education featuring explicit material to schools. In such extreme situations, there must be a possibility for the superintendent to intervene. The president of the Parents for Schools Foundation is of the opinion that parents should be given more opportunities to participate in decision-making at school, for example, through parent councils. He adds that he evaluates the project positively. Education is a great political challenge, and one needs to have courage to run it in such a way that it is understandable for society, for students, and at the same time to bring certain values to public life as an element of education for the whole of society. The goals outlined for the bill also mention the requirement for the written consent of parents of a minor or an adult student to participate in classes conducted by associations or organisations. Speaking to journalists, the World Health Organization's incident manager, Abdi Mohammed, has stated that there is mounting evidence to suggest the Omicron variant is causing milder symptoms compared to previous variants. The new variant is on track of becoming dominant in large parts of the Western world. According to the World Health Organization's representative, the information that has reached the United Nations agency points towards Omicron being a variant with a low mortality rate and also causing fewer hospitalizations.
We are seeing more and more studies pointing out that Omicron is infecting the upper part of the body, unlike other ones, the lung, who has been causing severe pneumonia. It can be a good news, but we really require more studies to prove that. We had a good number of studies coming up, proving again what we heard from South Africa, that the vaccine still protects you against hospitalization and severe disease and death. And that's what vaccines were designed. The challenge has not been the vaccine, but the vaccination and reaching those vulnerable populations.
However, he added that Omicron's high transmissibility means it will become dominant within weeks in many places, posing a threat in countries where a high proportion of the population remains unvaccinated.
Whenever Omicron is introduced, it will be a matter of weeks before it becomes the dominant. So the number has been fluctuating because of the availability of the data and the lag. Just to give you an example, in the US, they reported initially 70%. When all the data came back, it went to 57%. So there will be a fluctuation with the Christmas backlog, with the New Year. I think we'll have a better idea of the proportion in the coming days.
His remarks on the reduced risks of severe disease chime with other data, including a study from South Africa, which was one of the first countries where Omicron was detected. However, Mohammed also sounded a note of caution, calling South Africa an outlier since it has a young population, among other factors. The Italian Parliament will convene on the 24th of January to begin voting for a new head of state to replace the outgoing Sergio Mattarella. The chief of the lower house of Parliament ruled on Tuesday. The election of a new president of the Republic may have major repercussions for the future of Prime Minister Mario Draghi's government. Draghi has made clear he would like to become president, bringing to an end his 11-month-old government and leaving the country with the choice of either installing a new premier or holding elections a year ahead of schedule. However, there is no guarantee the 74-year-old former European Central Bank chief will get the job. The first choice of Italy's centre-right parties is the 85-year-old, 4 times Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi. The President, elected for a 7-year term, normally has a largely ceremonial role, but enjoys extensive powers following elections or when a government falls. He has the final say in nominating the Prime Minister and other cabinet members. The election, conducted by secret ballot, So I'll do that paragraph again. The election, conducted by secret ballot among more than 1,000 parliamentarians and regional representatives, is an unpredictable process, often taking several days. There are no official candidates, and each parliamentarian writes the name of their choice on a piece of paper. In the first 3 rounds of voting, a 2/3 majority is required to elect a president. From the 4th vote onwards, the threshold is lowered to an absolute majority, meaning 50% plus 1 of those who cast a ballot. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro will not need surgery after being admitted to hospital for an intestinal obstruction that has now been cleared, his medical team announced. The president had earlier been suddenly rushed to hospital during a tour of the country. The blockage was Bolsonaro's latest complication from a 2018 stabbing. According to the note, Bolsonaro showed satisfactory clinical improvement and will start a liquid diet on Tuesday. Doctors inserted a nasogastric tube right after his being admitted to hospital. Sao Paulo's Via Nova Star Hospital, where the president was admitted in the early hours of Monday, suffering from abdominal pain, said there was still no time frame for him being discharged. The decision not to operate on Bolsonaro came after he was re-evaluated by his doctor, Antonio Macedo, who was vacationing in the Bahamas and arrived in Sao Paulo on Tuesday morning. Bolsonaro has undergone a series of emergency operations since being stabbed by a communist sympathizer during a campaign event in September 2018. The Brazilian president said on Twitter on Monday that he started feeling unwell on Sunday after lunch. He had been vacationing in the southern state of Santa Catarina and was urgently taken to Sao Paulo by plane. Bolsonaro has been in power since 2019 and plans to stand for re-election as president in a vote scheduled for October this year. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.